Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Talk of the Town. Tonight, Talk of the Town and the regulars that are usually on it are here, but we're blessed with two people from Prince George's County, from the Rushern-Baker administration. The Deputy Chief of Staff is here with us, and also the Press Secretary. I'm going to let Lynn Lucci, who's been reelected as the President of the Chamber of Commerce, the Bowie Chamber, to really introduce them to you and give them a little bit of background. Before that, I'd like the mayor's here again. We always welcome the mayor. He does a great job for us here. And Lynn Skirpon, who is the elected president of Prince George's Community College Board of Trustees, is here tonight. So we're blessed with all these great people, and we believe, and they're going to prove to us whether I'm right or wrong, that with the Deputy Chief of Staff and the Press Secretary, we'll find out some of the great things that are going on in the county that people living here in Bowie may not know about. So Lynn, why don't you do us a favor?
Thanks. We're very, very lucky tonight to have two folks with us who work very, very hard, long hours, on behalf of the citizens of Prince George's County. And to my immediate left is Scott Peterson, who has worked in the past for C-SPAN and for the city of Baltimore. He's a Bowie resident. Peterson is not affiliated. Scott Peterson is not affiliated with the Peterson companies. It's unrelated. And Scott's job is to be the communications person between the county executive and the citizens and the press in Prince George's County. On my far left, not to indicate political persuasions at all, but just where he's seated is Brad Frome, who's also no stranger to Bowie. Brad is the Deputy Chief of Staff. He helps to make sure all the trains run in time in Prince George's County. He works very, very hard. He's has a one-year-old child.
1-year-old on Thursday.
And so he works very hard at that as well. And previously to being with the county, he worked for the county council, and before that the Maryland General Assembly, and is a very, very hard worker and a very brilliant campaign tactician and strategist as well. So we're lucky to have both these gentlemen here to talk about how the Baker administration is helping to move Prince George's County forward on the path to greatness. So that's my introduction.
Thank you. That's great. Let's start with Brad, the Chief of Staff. And the question is, what is one of the initiatives that you and the Baker administration have put into the county that you can be very proud of? What is really something that is working and you developed it and you initiated it?
Sure, no, thanks for having me. I mean, I would say initially that the thing that we can be most proud of is running an efficient government. And that seems simplistic, but to be frank, I think it's something we've gotten a bit away from. And when I say running an efficient government, I say, making sure that we have the personnel in place to make decisions, to administer policy that works for Prince George's County, and to have the personnel to actually on the ground implement that policy. And I think we all were aware of some of the stories from the past that we've kind of gotten away from that and kind of got our eye off the ball. And a big priority for our administration was to, starting with the top and going down, making sure that we had folks on board who were dedicated to the county, dedicated to what was doing what was right, and dedicated to providing efficient services for county taxpayers. And you see it in a couple distinct ways. A big focus for our administration is the permit system. We all know it's been too difficult to obtain permits in the county for folks to grow their businesses, to open up shop, employ county residents, grow the tax base. And what we're trying to do is, just as an idea of what I'm talking about, is to instill new values in how we look at permitting, to make sure that it's run efficiently for folks who run in the door, make sure that business owners who want to open up a business in the county are able to do so in a manner that is predictable, efficient, and that is cognizant of the time value of the money of people who want to invest in the county. But it's not just permit reform. It's across the government. It's how we deliver services. And one thing we've done to kind of police ourselves is we have a county stat department that literally is focused purely on ensuring that we're doing the best we can with the resources we have, which, as we all know, is important in a day and an age of stretched, limited resources. But that's what our taxpayers deserve.
And
excuse me.
And I would piggyback off of what Brad was saying about the efficient government is also how we are constantly going back to messaging and focusing on our four main priority areas of the Baker administration, and that is education, public safety, economic development, and healthcare access. And as you know, we always read in the news, and our direction goes one way or another. And such as the gaming debate, is obviously a lot in the news right now. But behind in our office, that's one of 500 different issues that are going on, and constantly making sure that the public is aware that we are working on all cylinders in really in those four specific directions as hard as we can. So, we can see, the ball move down the field and progress made in this county. So, again, education, public safety, economic development, and healthcare access are those four main focus areas of the Baker administration that, again, by using more efficient, tactics of government, we're going to see progress in all those areas in this first term that we are 18 months in.
Great. How about, we'd like to ask you, each one of us would have a couple of questions we'd like to ask. And why don't we start with Lynn Scarpon?
Sure.
And if you want me, I'll call you President Scarpon.
Actually, I'm chair.
Chair of the Board of Trustees.
I've been elected. I haven't been sworn in yet.
All
I'm
right.
chair.
So we'll just
Come
go
Would you
July.
like us
then.
to swear at you just to make you feel at home?
No.
Okay.
No. But along with my role as chair-elect at the Board of Trustees of Community College, I know recently the county executive and the county set up an education, I don't know, commission, work group, study group, whatever.
Commission for Education Excellence.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to know how that is going to work in tandem with the Board of Education, the community college, and the other educational entities that are out there.
I'll take it first, and Brad can follow up on whatever I missed. First off, this was a recommendation in the transition report of the county executive. The first step was to have an education liaison or education policy advisor in our office, which we did earlier this year by hiring a phenomenal genius of a young man. I say young, I mean 29, but just incredible mind that came from the Prince George's County Teachers Union, now working in our office, and just is so innovative. So his name is Christian Rhodes. The second step in that process, what the transition committee, education part of the transition subcommittee, the transition committee recommended, was an establishment of a commission, a board of advisors to the county executive, basically using our talents that we have here in the county, such as Dr. Dukes, who is on this commission. I mean, what a resource that we have in this county, and an individual like Dr. Duke, someone who is recognized by the Obama administration for the work that she has done. The fact that she is herself agreeing to volunteer, her extra time to, come and work on this commission and be able to have advisors to the county executive on what can we do from our office, to support Dr. Height and the Board of Education. And again, bringing the entire village together, because once, out of all those four main priorities, the county executive, he said during his very first press conference, before taking office, when he announced his transition team, some reporter did ask him, well, what do you think your legacy is going to be in this county after you're done? And he actually said, I don't think it's going to be for any big sort of projects. I really hope my legacy will be education, although that's a very tough subject matter to have as a political legacy, because a lot of times it's out of your control, and especially the county executive, you only have so much power over the school system. So what can we do to every wraparound service, whether it's before school, after school, supplemental programs, finding businesses and foundations to invest in Prince George's County education? What can we do to improve the education in this county to move us from where we are right now in the state and move us up that ladder so we can have an education system that this county deserves? Did I miss anything?
Not much. I would say, just to add on top of that, if you look at the main drivers for people's perception, businesses, residents of a certain area, you look at public safety, you look at the quality of the education system. City of Bowie is blessed, due in large measure to the leadership of the city, have a great public safety apparatus in the police department, a great high school, and by all accounts, good elementary and middle school. For some parts of the county, aren't nearly as fortunate. And the charge of this commission is, what else can we be doing? what it's not is it's not a second school board. It's not a policy setting apparatus. But what it is, as Scott mentioned, is it's what else can we be doing, especially looking at the private sector. The private sector gets, you look at the organizations that are out there that talk about education reform nationwide, and it tends to be the largest corporations because they get that their success is due in large measure to the quality of education that U.S. citizens receive. So how can we involve the private sector in the success of our school system? One thing that we talked about last week is involving Lockheed Martin in providing digital equipment to really bring some classrooms into the digital age. You've got a great teacher at Eleanor Roosevelt or Bowie High School or whatever. How is it that we can get that teacher in front of a lot more students in the school system? How can we take what we have and spread it across the school system and engage more students? And part of it is through that digital connection, and we're working with Lockheed Martin, a great name in that industry, to help us do that. And that's really the charge of this commission, is to find out more ways that we can have those kind of partnerships. And as Scott mentioned, what else can we do to help the school board and to help Dr. Height to improve upon our school system?
And that's also taking advantage of all the resources. This county has an amazing amount of resources. NASA, NOAA, sure. Barks, University of Maryland, Bowie State. A county I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, would die to have any of those, one of those resources, let alone all of them in this county. So I think, again, the Education Commission continue to work on partnerships that the school system has already created. What can we drum up more? And we look forward to seeing the work. They're a dynamic group of individuals, all very well accomplished, and bring different talents to the table in this Education Commission. And I know I really look forward to seeing their work begin. And I do believe it'll make a difference for our residents.
Great.
If I might,
sure.
I would just urge you to take this message back to the commission and to the county executive. There is always so much talk, so much press about K through 12 education. I hope the focus of this commission and this county executive is on K through 14 education, because the community college inherits many of the problems that come out of the public high schools, and we can't cure those ills all by ourselves. So I hope there's a K through 14 emphasis.
Does that count like the 3 years that Terry and I spent in the third grade?
No, but it
No.
does talk about the middle college that just had its first year. That's an incredible,
Which is spectacular.
Think out of the box
wonderful
example where
Yes.
these students can graduate with a high school degree, high school diploma, and hopefully an AA degree
And
as well.
at
the
the
same
same time. And that is very important. Lynn is on the money. I was on the trustees at the community college, and we were getting the high school graduates who needed remedial math and remedial English. And the numbers were staggering, several thousand needed that be reworked. So it's so important with this new program that Charlie and Dukes have put together, that it's a wonderful thing. And when you say grade 14, the kids really object to that. But the important thing is an AA combined with graduating from high school is a wonderful thing. And she really has got some great initiatives going.
And it saves both the community college and the high school
You bet.
money,
Yes, it
because you
does.
get the state funding because the high school doesn't have to provide a physical building, and you get the state funding that gets the substitute for other funding that the community college would have to pay for otherwise. So I mean, they both
Got it.
save fiscally, and it makes so much sense to do it that way.
And I think what was talked about with the launch of the Education Commission, and the county executive mentioned this, he also mentioned this to even during his State of the Economy address to the entire business community of Prince George's County. He focused on the business of education was the topic of his speech. And what he also mentioned was there is a need to make sure that we are all talking about these great programs in this county, that parents and residents know that there are a lot of options. Parkdale High School has recently had a great partnership with Capital One Bank. They are running a bank from their high school. These kids are getting real world knowledge of not just banking, but also personal finance and financial responsibility. So there are a lot of great things going on in our high school that we really hope the Education Commission can assist and provide provide more opportunities, but also think outside those schoolroom doors and anything the county gets involved with. It is sort of very similar to what we recently did with our TNI areas, the Transforming Neighborhoods initiatives, which were taking a little bit more holistic approach rather than looking at challenging communities from just a public safety standpoint, but looking at challenging communities from a education standpoint, an economic development standpoint, healthcare access. And so same thing with this Education Commission. What's holistically that what we can do with education? And that's looking at social services, family services, and a variety of other wraparound fields that the government's already doing work in. We just need to make sure we're all communicating and keeping our eye on the ball.
Great idea to enhance those programs. Mayor, you have questions?
Well, I think you've mentioned the word
Yes.
economic development a couple of times. That's critically important to me. One of the challenges we've had over the years, I mean, obviously when we try to attract businesses to come to the community, and we've had some marked success in doing that. And it's the same, every business person will tell you the same thing. Tell me about schools, tell me about public safety, and tell me about housing opportunities. Sometimes they're in a different sequence, but that's the same thing they want to know all the time. One of the challenges that I have when we reach out to economic development is we have kind of this bifurcated or trifurcated planning process in the county that really, I think, hinders more than helps the development process. You got the planning commission, you got the county councils, you got the cities and towns, where there are differences of opinion and different focus and different designs. And unfortunately, the source of friction for us in the past has been trying to deal with the Park and Planning Commission sometimes when their interests and our interests are not similar, and the county tends to say, well, we'll do it our way or the highway. And I think Park and Planning process doesn't really add to the streamlining of the process and giving us the opportunity to reach out to more economic development, bring them here. At some point, I think the county executive and people are going to have to sit down and say, is the process as we have it now helping or hurting? And depending on how you answer that, what are we going to do about it? My sense is very straightforward. I represent a city of almost 60,000 people that if it was in any county other than Prince George's, we'd be making land use decisions. And yet I have to deal with a bureaucracy down the Planning Commission about where a shrub goes on a planning project, which is silly. So sometimes I'd really like to see the county executive bite the bullet and put people together and say, I know this is what it's been for the last 100 years, but is it really the best way to do this? And have some take the same kind of commission approach that you're looking at education, and let's look at the whole economic development process. Where can we get the best bang for the buck? And and in terms of the selected sites that you're on, that's a great approach, and we don't really have a problem with that unless or until it becomes an either or. And that's what we want to just make sure that the city's interest remains on par with some of the other folks. But I think really the biggest thing we got to do is get everybody on one page, like most every other county is in the state.
I'm going to defer to Mr.
What do you
Frome.
think?
Was there a question in there?
Yeah. Can we abolish the Park and Planning Commission?
The mayor doesn't ask questions. The mayor kind of indicates what he'd like you to talk about.
Can I put a question to that, maybe to help focus?
Sure.
I mean, why is it that 21 other counties have their own Parks and Rec department and their own planning department, and Prince George's doesn't?
Has a bi-county agency that's long outlived its
Unelected,
useful.
has its own tax authority, has its own police department, its own everything else. Why are we duplicating such a big part of government when every other county executive in the state of Maryland, except for Prince George's, Montgomery, have that power themselves? And so, I mean, I know this is a big idea with the big changes and big things that maybe need to be done in a big second term, but still it seems like it's a big thing that really needs to be fixed so you can really centralize economic development so the county executive has all the tools in his own arsenal rather than having to deal with other agencies and hope that they'll cooperate.
Well, I would appreciate what you're saying. I'm not going to. I don't know if it's right for us to be here to argue for centralized authority in our administration. I mean, I think that if and as we all know, Park and Planning is at its core a state agency. So it's going to operate under operates in large measure under the jurisdiction of the General Assembly. I will say that what a lot of what the mayor referenced as far as noted displeasures with the park and planning process is something we're well aware of. It's something that, and not just for the city of Bowie, but countywide, something we're aware of, and we've been working diligently to bring some focus and to bring some clarity. One of the things that you talk about, folks in the business community, they talk about predictability, having a predictable system. And the ways in which park and planning and the process just in general doesn't lend itself to the predictability that businesses long for is going to be something we're always going to be in the lookout for. And one thing I will say, though, that something that is completely under our control is, looking at the planning process from planning to opening a business. There's kind of two sides of the coin. There's the entitlement kind of paper process, getting the legal right to build whatever you want, and then getting the permits to actually construct it. And the permitting system is something that is squarely in the administration and the executive branch of county government. So we feel as though that's a particular place that we're putting a lot of attention to, because that's also, after someone gets the right to, as you said, build a building and they have to put shrubs here and there, then they have to go get the permits to do it. And they got to go through fire inspection, they got to work with WSSC, they got to work with utilities, they got to work with transportation, et cetera, et cetera. And streamlining that process. And again, making it as predictable and efficient as possible. Because it's something that we hear from businesses that, in addition to issues that folks raise about doing business in Prince George's County, they talk about the system governing the approval process.
Well, it just seems to me that it makes sense for the county executive to have the planning authority, moving the county forward, and maybe have the council can certainly approve or disapprove of a particular process. But if you streamline this process and you have the county executive and the county council initiating policy and approving or disapproving things because of a master plan, I think we can just move so much more effectively, not only from the neighborhood concern, but for the businesses. Like one of the biggest complaints I hear from people is that it takes years from the beginning or from the moment of interest in putting up a new building, for example, or bringing a couple of hundred new jobs. It takes years to go through the process, and that shouldn't be. When I talk to people that do business in Virginia or someplace else, they'll say, if you're going to open up a major facility, you'll go to the county executive or whatever, and they'll have all the resources there. Tell us what you need, and let's get it done. And here we go to 2 or 3 different agencies, and it just replicates the process and increases the cost.
I mean, you're right, and something we've done on the park and planning side, and this isn't a consolidation, because again, some of this matters for the General Assembly, as park and planning is technically a state agency, is having park and planning folks work side by side with our agencies, specifically Department of Environmental Resources and Department of Public Works and Transportation, to take. Sometimes when you've got the planners who aren't necessarily working, the actual administration, the actual implementation of policy, sometimes you can get a disconnect. You need to build this extra lane of roadway to suffice our planning standards, when in actuality that right of way can't be obtained. And what we're trying to do is to kind of right size some of those planning aspirations with an eye towards what can actually be implemented. So that we were able to work with park and planning and these agencies by signing an MOU to bring them together. And are there other things that arguably could be done on the planning process? Yes. One thing that I just thought of that we did in the first year was we said that when a case goes through the system, we put a time certain that it had to be disposed of with a certain time frame. Because a lot of times these cases would lag, and they'd lag for a considerable amount of time, and there is a time value to money. As these projects are moving through the system, so we put a time certain that they had to be gone through the system. Is there more that can be done? Absolutely. And it's something that we've got a fantastic DCAO, Carla Reed, who is the former head of the Office of Permitting in Montgomery County, who works day and night tirelessly to continue to refine and improve upon our system.
And I would also to add on that, I mean, as you referenced, this has been an issue and a problem in the county for years, and we've been in office 18 months, so you can imagine that it is these issues aren't what we can do in 18 months is going to be limited, as you can probably testify to, just 18 months. But what we did do in 18 months was pass a $50 million economic development incentive fund, which is again a pretty big deal in terms of economic development, and something this county was not doing before and was lagging behind.
I think it's great. And, we
our
supported
neighbors.
that as well. And
So
we have a complementary plan where the two of us have worked together already on a couple of projects.
So and I would stress that because, again, it's as Brad and I really can't speak to the system as we are working inside the system, maybe to the level that you would like. But at the same time, there are things that, again, what we can do and what we've been able to do in 18 months still has accomplished things that, had not been done before. And again, on the Economic Development Incentive Fund, we're about to, the next month or so, start having some of that money hit the street. And I think people will see exactly, 1 year ago when we were saying why we needed or why we were looking to get this fund passed into law, exactly what it's going to do. It's going to create jobs, it's going to create opportunities, and it's going to assist municipalities just like here in Bowie.
Well, the one message I would have you take
Go
back to
ahead.
the county executive is local land use decision-making authority.
Noted.
Good. No, he's asked the county executive that before on numerous occasions, and we always got a positive response early on. But we only have a few minutes left, Len. I don't want to cut you out, so
Okay.
go
Well,
ahead.
Prince George's County is larger than 6 states, 850,000 people, and yet those states all have daily newspapers, television stations devoted right to that area. Here in Prince George's County, we don't have our own full-time TV station, except for Bowie Prince George's
Bowie Cable TV.
But we don't have our own TV stations with our own TV news like
You
that.
have CTV.
We have CTV, but we don't have full-time network. Anyway, and we don't have a daily newspaper. So how do you get your message out? We don't really seem to have our own free media in Prince George's County to the extent that because Prince George's County is really, it's a county, it's really a large urban metropolis, an urban area. It's like the county executive is really like a big city mayor without the big city trappings of a newspaper or daily newspaper and TV station. So how do you get your message out in the 20th?
Well, as someone who worked for a big city mayor and now a big county executive, it is a difference. The media looks at a city much differently than they look at a county. And again, that's why in this region you will have, even DC is a smaller jurisdiction than Fairfax County or Montgomery County or us, but they are still going to dominate a lot of the local news there. What I would suggest is we live in a glorious time where information is anywhere. The patches are wonderful in this county in terms of hyper-local news. Actually, we've seen great growth in the patches in University Park, Riverdale Park, mainly around the issue of the K-Fritz development that those things have. So there is hyper-local news out there that anybody can find. You just need a smartphone or a computer that it is at your fingertips to find the news. If nothing else, please come to our website. Read. Please, if you go on the left side of the homepage, there's every press release that we've ever put out from this administration. And I highly recommend you want to know exactly what we're doing. We have a lot of information out there with hyperlinks and resources available any single time for the residents.
With that, we're going to have to close down. I want to thank both of you very much. There's so much more I think we could talk about that I'd like to keep in mind. Would like to invite you, would like to bring both back again. And I thank you very much. It was very informative, and there are many other things we would like to talk to you two about. So thank you, and we'll be looking to bring you back again soon. We run the show once a month, and we have it about 4 or 5 times a month that it's showed on the cable TV. So, good night, everyone.
You get an incredible rap sign here, buddy.
Well, Tom was giving me the rap 4 minutes ago.
Okay. Good night.